Good afternoon, happy Earth Day, and happy last day of rain in Seattle for a while. From the KUOW newsroom, this is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning with today's top stories. It's Wednesday, April 22nd. Bus news to start the show. Some long-awaited changes are coming for Seattle's Route 8 bus, known as the Late. Today, the city announced plans to add a dedicated bus lane in the most congested spots along Denny Way.
The core of the problem is that you can jump rope faster than the bus when it goes eastbound at rush hour. This certainly is going to fix that problem.
Nick Satterley helps lead a grassroots campaign to fix the 8 bus. It's one of the busiest buses at King County Metro and has a long history of being slow and late. This summer, a new dedicated bus lane will run from the Seattle Center through South Lake Union. Dan Anderson is a spokesperson with Seattle Department of Transportation.
What that'll do is give buses the priority so that buses will be able to move through and pass traffic and congestion and serve riders waiting at all the stops ahead.
SDOT will start work next month, but pause for the World Cup and finish work in August. Today is Earth Day. To mark the date 4 years ago, President Joe Biden announced an executive order in Seattle to create the first national assessment of nature. That order was later rescinded by President Donald Trump, but the team that started that report refused to stop the work. Phil Levins, the interim director of the Earth Lab at the University of Washington, and is leading the effort. He says a draft is now out for public comment, and their findings were critical.
50% of our wetlands have been lost. Half the country is used for agriculture. 1 million acres of land every year are converted to development across the U.S., and there's 90,000 dams in U.S. rivers that are disrupting, fish migrations. At the same time, there's a lot of hope and optimism. There's a lot of bright spots out there.
The team plans to publish the report by the end of the year after the public comment period closes. I'm putting our short news notes up high in the show today, which can be summarized as Boeing's getting better, election staff are under pressure. First, the King County Elections Director says the state's GOP is pushing a false narrative about vote by mail. GOP Chair and State Representative Jim Walsh revealed last week that someone found a hoard of sealed ballots behind a dumpster and brought them to him. And now he's raising questions about mail security. Elections Director Julie Wise says if Walsh cares about security, the responsible thing to do would be immediately turning them over to authorities. That's after Walsh opened and displayed them in a video post. Wise says her office is supporting the Postal Service in investigating what happened, but that there was no opportunity for fraud because the ballots weren't filled out. USPS News doesn't stop there today. Today, Washington Senator Maria Cantwell warned USPS that if it complies with President Trump's mail-in ballot orders, it will be breaking the law. Cantwell joined 36 senators in a letter saying, "We demand you follow the law and not implement this executive order." Trump signed an executive order in March that tells the Postal Service to only deliver ballots to people who are on federal voting lists, which the feds plan to compile. A third short story, Boeing reported more losses in its quarterly earnings today, but the report came with good news for the company. Boeing is narrowing its losses. CNBC reports the company lost $7 million in the first quarter, an improvement from the $31 million loss in the same quarter a year ago. Wouldn't be Earth Day if we didn't talk about the Northwest's signature fish. Salmon took a hit this year as funding to help them survive dried up. People who work to restore fish habitat say salmon runs will keep declining unless legislators make bigger investments. John Ryan reports.
A little stream called Starboard Creek meanders through the lowlands of the Skagit Valley. Its water is dark brown with tannins from nearby wetlands.
Even though they're hard to see, I'm sure there's coho in here right now.
Yuki Rice is a restoration ecologist with the Skagit Fisheries Enhancement Group. It's one of 14 regional nonprofits formed by the state legislature to save salmon. The Skagit Group got state funding to remove salmon-blocking culverts from a private road on Starboard Creek.
This project opened up over 6 miles of habitat upstream.
She says results were quick.
If you remove a barrier one summer, that fall you're going to see salmon moving upstream past where they weren't able to get before.
State funding for the regional salmon groups has dropped by about a third. State agencies that work on salmon have also had their budgets cut. The state budget signed by Governor Bob Ferguson preserved core services over environmental spending. Advocates and state officials say the spending is essential to getting salmon and orcas off the endangered species list. Federal funding for Pacific salmon has been steady. The Trump administration wanted to eliminate it. Congress rejected that idea. Still, millions in federal funds for salmon are months overdue. John Ryan, KUOW News.
What happened at Cherry Point Oil Refinery over the weekend? Investigators will spend about 6 months looking into some sort of accident at BP's refinery in Blaine, Washington on Saturday that sent 3 workers to the hospital. The investigating agencies are the Northwest Clean Air Agency and the State Department of Labor and Industries. Cherry Point is Washington State's largest oil refinery. In economy news today, a new report from Seattle's Office of Labor Standards looked at the impact of the city's gig worker minimum pay law in its first 18 months. Joshua McNichols reports.
The law was intended to help app workers on platforms like Uber Eats. Steve Marchese directs Seattle's Office of Labor Standards, and he says the city's report shows the law is working.
Worker pay has increased substantially to over $16 an hour, which is significantly more than workers were getting paid prior to the ordinance.
But the app industry disagrees. An Uber spokesperson said the report uses, quote, selective data and inconsistent methodologies to reach an inaccurate conclusion. Uber pointed to an earlier study by the National Bureau of Economic Research showing worker pay had dropped. So we have 2 conflicting studies. One major difference between them is scale. The city's study is 15 times larger. The city plans to update the report periodically. It gets new data from app companies every 3 months. Joshua McNichols, KUOW News.
Those higher Alaska Airlines fares we've mentioned on the show, they might be here to stay. The Seattle Times reports Alaska has raised fares by an average of $25 and says that will remain, even if jet fuel prices go down. The rapid increase in the price of jet fuel could cost the airline an extra $600 million over the next few months. In a call with investors this week, Alaska's chief commercial officer, Andrew Harrison, said, quote, people want to fly, airplanes are full. Let's end with a final climate note this Earth Day. With hotter summers and drier years expected on the horizon, King County is looking at its trees. The county says it's launched a study of the forest canopy across 34 miles. What it finds could inform how the county takes action to plant or support trees across its unincorporated areas. Next time on Seattle Now, it is really hard to find a single-family home to rent in Seattle, and there's a lot of disagreement about why. Some blame renter protections, others blame larger economic forces like mortgage rates and home prices.
I've talked to economists about this, and I would love to have a straight answer for you, but it sounds like everybody's a little bit right.
Hear more Thursday morning. That's all for today from the KUOW Newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Andy Hurst, and I'm Paige Browning. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. Happy Earth Day. See you later.